What's up, y'all? BK back here with CliffPickleball to bring you some more great pickleball content. So today I wanted to talk to you about a shot that a lot of players absolutely hate. This shot is probably the most hated shot in all of pickleball, and it doesn't matter whether it's the rec courts or the pro game, everybody hates this shot when it's hit against them. However, you can also get seriously punished if you don't execute it right. We are, of course, today going to be talking about the lob. Let's do it. Now, the lob is one of the most underutilized shots in all of pickleball. It's something that when you come in at the beginner stage, a lot of people tell you to avoid the shot because you could get really punished. It's a shot that you hit up into the air, and because the court is so small, it's something that most players can just hit an overhead or hit a put away, and it's very hard to execute unless you practice this skill. So today we're going to talk about how to use the lob and also when and why you should use it to utilize it as a weapon and turn it into an advantage for yourself. So what is a lob? If you've never heard that before, a lob is a shot where you're trying to hit the ball over your opponent and back down, pushing them backward. It's something that we use in tennis a lot because it's an easy way to reset the point. However, in pickleball, the court is so small that if you mishit the lob, it's an easy put away or that ball is going to go out. So your margin of error on this shot is really small. This is why you need to pick the perfect situation to hit the lob so that you're really accurate with the shot, and also why you need to practice the shot a lot to make sure that you have that perfect accuracy on the shot so you're not missing it. So let's first talk about the mechanics of the lob. The lob is a shot where, again, you're trying to hit that ball over your opponent. So what you're going to do, like most shots, is early preparation, set your feet, and then open that paddle face. When you open that paddle face, that's when you're able to lift that ball. So what you need to do is contact the ball in front of your body and lift up so you're able to put that ball over your opponent and bring it back down. Now, the way you're going to efficiently bring the ball back down is by adding topspin. So what you need to do while you're lifting this ball up is to try and roll that ball with your forehand or your backhand so you generate some topspin on the ball that's going to lift that ball over, and then the spin is going to bring it back down so that now you're able to effectively execute the lob. Now, the most important part about hitting the perfect lob is to make sure that you know exactly when and where to hit this shot. So what we're going to talk about first is where to hit the lob from. So when you're hitting the lob, you want to make sure that you have enough distance between yourself, your opponents, and the baseline for you to hit that ball over your opponent and bring it back down before the baseline. So what you're going to do is try and avoid hitting a lob. If you're at the baseline, that means you have to hit the ball all the way from your baseline to their baseline extremely accurately without giving your opponent the opportunity to hit an overhead. Because the distance is so big, your margin of error becomes even bigger. So really try and avoid hitting the lob from the baseline because it's very hard to control that shot, and make sure that it goes over your opponent and still being able to bring it back down to land inside the box. So what you want to do for the most part, if you're trying to hit a lob, is try to hit it when you're at the kitchen and your opponent is at the kitchen, because that way what you can do is lift that ball over your opponent because they're so close to you and have all that space behind them to land the lob. So it's a really effective way to push your opponent back and get them turning the wrong way so that now they're put into a disadvantageous situation. So again, what you're going to do is always try and hit the lob when you're at the kitchen and your opponent is at the kitchen. Now, there is one particular situation where you can hit the lob from the baseline. This situation is when your opponent hits a backspinning slice at you and you're able to add more spin on the ball by hitting a topspin over their head. What this does is add so much spin on the ball that now even if you hit that ball really high, the spin is going to bring that ball back down. However, this is a shot that you need extreme practice and patience on. This is something that you have to train a lot because it's very hard to execute if you don't know what you're doing. So again, the only time that you should be trying a lob from the baseline is if you get a sliced ball at you with enough backspin that you're now able to add more topspin on the ball to lift that ball over your opponent and bring it back down before the baseline. Now, the next thing you need to know, and arguably the most important thing about hitting the lob, is when to hit the lob. So what you're going to do is we're going to have me and my partner here dink balls back and forth between us, and I'm going to show you what to look for to hit the lob. So right here, I'm just going to dink back and forth with my opponent, and really what I'm looking for is to see whether he tries to play too aggressive on his front foot. So if I see him leaning in, being really aggressive, trying to take these balls out of the air, then that's a perfect opportunity for me to push him off balance and get that ball over his head. So what I was looking for is to see him leaning in. If you see your opponent leaning in really far, getting really low, playing on their toes, use that lob to now push them off balance and get them to the back of the court. Now that we know when to lob the ball, it's important to know which part of the court you're going to hit that lob into. So what you want to make sure to do is on your lob, try and target your opponent's backhand. If you can get them turning into their backhand to try and get that lob versus turning into their forehand to hit an overhead, that's going to be a lot easier for you to win that point. So what you're going to do is look for your opponent's position on the court. If we're dinking to the left side, which is the right side for my opponent, what's going to happen is my partner is going to be covering that down the line shot and I'm going to be covering this middle. So the best place to lob will be right behind me between those two blue cones and the baseline. So if I'm in the middle and my opponent or my partner is in that corner covering the down the line, the best place would be to attack my backhand by going between those two blue cones and the baseline. Because what that forces us to do is either my partner has to run around and grab that ball on his forehand, which is a really far distance for him to go, or I gotta go and try to get that ball on my backhand, which is a very inconsistent shot and a non-threatening shot. So that again is the best place to execute the lob if I'm on the middle and my partner is in the left corner. Now, if we're standing 50-50, the best place to lob is to try and hit my partner's backhand corner between those two red cones and the baseline. Because what happens when we're 50-50 is if you lob down the middle, that's my partner's forehand and he's gonna hit that overhead. And if you lob behind me, I don't have to worry about my left side because of my partner. So I'm also gonna take this ball with an overhead. So the best place to lob is to hit my partner's backhand, where now you're hitting between those two red cones and the baseline. So the only way for us to really get that ball is for one of us to go back there and try to drop that ball with our backhand. So these are the two best places to hit the lob. All right, so we talked about how to hit the lob, where to hit the lob, when to hit the lob. However, what happens if your opponent lobs you? So what we're also going to talk about is how do we defend the lob? So to defend the lob, the first thing you need to do is make a decision. Between yourself and your partner, there are two main decisions you have to make. Who's hitting the ball and what sort of shot you're hitting back. So first thing, who's hitting the ball? What you want to do is always try and have the person that's hitting the lob hit it with their forehand. So if the lob goes down the middle, whoever has the forehand in the middle should get that ball. And honestly, if I'm on the right side and the lob goes over my head, it's easier for my partner to run to that ball with a forehand and me to slide over and take over their position, because again, that gives us the best opportunity to get that ball back accurately. If I'm forced to turn my entire body away from the court, run to this ball and turn back around and now try to hit this ball while my partner's just sitting there not knowing what I'm going to do with that next ball, it makes it a lot harder to properly execute that shot. So what you're going to do is early communication. If that ball goes over my head and I don't think I can get that with an overhead, I'm simply going to yell you and move over to that spot, and as soon as my partner hears me say you, they're going to run back and get that with their forehand. Now the same thing can happen with my partner. If that ball goes over their head and they're not comfortable hitting that overhead, or they think it's too high and they don't feel comfortable to run around that ball either, they're simply going to say you and come to my spot, and now I'm going to run back and try to hit this drop. The reason the person on the cross-court side gets those lobs is because they never have to turn their body away from the court. They're always in position to look at the court, noticing where their opponents are and noticing where they can play the ball. So even while I'm running back, I can still look at my opponents and get this ball, versus if I'm trying to run straight behind, now I'm lost. I have no idea where my opponents are. I have no idea where my partner is, and that makes it a lot harder for me to know where to hit that ball.